Welcome to the podcast, Let the Prophet Speak. This is Isaiah 62, Yeshayahu Perek Samach Beis. This is Saul Weinreb, the host for your podcast. In 61, we just listened to Yeshayahu speak of himself and of his pride in his own mission and his happiness and satisfaction with the fact that he was appointed and anointed by God to bring the message of redemption and deliverance to the world. We continue to hear Yeshayahu speak on his own behalf. However, in this chapter, he carries a message to the Jewish people, and his message is one directing the people throughout their exile. So in other words, he's saying, never give up on rebuilding Zion and Jerusalem. Never give up on praying and begging God and demanding that he fulfill his promises to you to rebuild Jerusalem. This is, the most passionate and support for, of really the Zionist enterprise, but not just the Zionist enterprise in the sense of the modern movement of Zionism started by Theodor Herzl, but in the 19th century, but the Zionist enterprise of the Jewish people throughout the generations to come back and with their own hands rebuild Jerusalem and to demand of God that he come and bring about the redemption. So let's start from verse 1. First, Isaiah says on his own, Leman Sion, for the sake of Zion, Lo echasheh, I will not be quiet. In other words, I will continue to pray and demand of God. And we'll see in a few minutes how I know this is what he means, because from the context of the rest of the chapter, Uleman Yerushalayim, and for Jerusalem, Lo eshkot, I will never be silent, Ad yetzei chanogat tzidka, until light shines, her light shines forth in her righteousness shines forth with light. Now I just want to point out that if we look back at chapter 60, where we were also talking to regarding Zion, and it said in verse 3, V'halchu goyim le'orech, and the nations of the world will go by your light, u'melachim linoga zarchech, and the kings, the leadership of the world, will follow the glow of your shine, or the so this is again that same word kanogat tzidka, but over here what it's defining more, what is that light? It is your tzedek, your righteousness, as we learned all the way back in the beginning in chapter 1 verse 27, Tzion b'mishpat tipadeh, that the redemption of Tzion comes with justice, Vishaveha, and those that return to it, b'tzidaka, with righteousness. Again, it's tzidka, it's the tzedek, it's the righteousness which shines forth from Jerusalem. Vishuasa, and her redemption, kilapid yivar, will flame like a torch that brings light to a large area. This is until then, Isaiah promises, I will not be silent. I will continue to pray and demand this of God. V'ra'u goyim tzidkech, and until the time comes when all the nations of the world see your righteousness, your tzedek. V'chol milachim kivodech, and all of the kings of the world, all of the leaders of the world will see your honor. V'kora lach shem chadash, and there will be called to you a new name. Jerusalem, Zion will be given a new name. Yeshayahu doesn't define what this new name is, but a new name will be given, Asher pi Adonai yikavenu, that God himself will give to Jerusalem and Zion a new name. V'hayis ateres tiferes bi'ad Adonai, and you will be a glorious crown in the hand of God. Utzinif melucha b'chaf Elohayach, and a tzanif, Mitzudos here explains that a tzanif is from the language of mitznefet, of a hat or a turban or a glorious kind of headgear of kingship will be in the hand of your God. Lo ye'amer lach od azuva, they will no longer say to you, Zion, that you are the forsaken one. Ula artseich, and to your land, your country, lo ye'amer od shemama. No one will say, oh, that's a desolate land. There's nothing there. It's destroyed. Ki lachi korei chafetzi ba. Because people will say, that is the land that I desire. Ula artseich be'ula. And to your land they will say that she is the be'ula. Now, be'ula usually means a mature woman, a married woman, a woman who is in a relationship, as opposed to a maiden or a virgin. So be'ula usually means that, but we've seen it earlier in just a couple chapters ago in 54 verse 1 that it also means a settled land. It said ki rabim b'nei shomemam b'nei be'ula, that means a settled land. The Mitzudos points out that be'ula here should be looked at as meaning ulartzeich be'ula. People will say you're a land that's kind of like a mature woman who's married, who has her home, who has her family, who has her spouse, is the image of a land that is built. It has its homes, it has its people, it has its children, and so on. Ki chafetz Adonai bach, because God desires you, v'artzeich tiboel, and your land shall be built up. I'm translating tiboel the same way I just translated be'ula. Ki yiv'al bachor besula, with the same metaphor but over here the same language of be'ula, a woman who has had a relationship. So here it means ki yiv'al bachor besula, just like a young man marries, has a relationship with a sexual relationship with a besula, with a maiden, with a virgin. But over here it means just like the Malbim kind of lays it out beautifully and says that if the land of Israel and the country and Zion, Jerusalem specifically, imagine that things get old over time. If people have had some relationships over time, they get old, and they no longer have that vigor and beauty and wonder and sense of wonder and sense of a renewal that it had in the beginning. But over here, the relationship, even though it's going to take thousands of years, that building, remember that we're using the metaphor of building a family, building a relationship, to building the land. So just like a bachor is boel, a besula, same thing, yiv aluch banayach, your children, when they come to the land, back to Zion and Jerusalem, they will rebuild it, they will restore it with that same vigor, that same sense of newness that they had thousands of years before. Umisos chason al kala, with the same joy that a groom has over his bride. Yasis alayach Elohayach, God will also rejoice over you in the same way that a groom rejoices over his bride. Al chomosayach Yerushalayim, upon the walls, on your walls, Jerusalem, hifkadeti shomrim, I have appointed guards, watchmen, kol hayom v'chol halayla, all day and all night. Now, remember, this is Yeshayahu talking. This verse is a subject of is the words of many popular songs throughout the Jewish world, and it's usually very highly misinterpreted. What this means, here you have Yeshayahu, what this really means is actually much more beautiful than what many people assume that it means. Yeshayahu is talking to the Jewish people and saying, on your walls, Jerusalem, I, meaning Yeshayahu, I told you that I will never be silent. I will never stop praying for you until God brings about this redemption that I'm speaking of. And I am appointing, Yeshayahu tells the Jewish people, I am appointing guardians that they shall do the same thing. He continues, Tamid lo yachashu, and those guardians, just like I said, I will never be silent, the guardians, the people that I am appointing throughout the days of exile, the ones that are going to live throughout the world, and constantly, they will never be silent either. In other words, the Jewish people will always pray Kol hayom v'chol halayla, all day and all night. Hamazkirim es Adonai, those that are here to remind God. Al dami lachem, and then he demands. Yeshayahu says to the people, do not ever be quiet. You should always demand of God. V'al titnu dami lo, and then he continues in the next verse, again with the same demand repeated. Do not ever, and he says, Al titnu, you, my guardians, do not ever give him silence. Ad yichonein, until he reestablishes, v'ad yosim es Yerushalayim tila ba'aretz, until he goes ahead and rebuilds Jerusalem as a praiseworthy, beautiful place among the world. Nishba Adonai b'mino u'v'zra uzo, Yeshayahu continues in verse 8. God made us swear, he promised us with his right hand and with the strength of his hand. And we mentioned before several times, repeatedly, when he talks about the Zeroah, that is the arm with which God rebuilds Jerusalem. Imetain estigonech, he swore to us that he will no longer ever give the fruits of our labor. Od ma'achol ovayach, he will never do that and give it anymore to our enemies. No, he will never give that land or place or the products of our labor to foreigners or strangers. Asher yagadpo, we worked for it. The people of Israel worked for it, and the people of Israel will get it. Kima asvav yochaluhu, but rather those that harvest it, those that build the land, they are the ones that are going to reap the benefits of the land. V'hilalu es Adonai, and they will praise God. Umikabtzav, and those who gather around within the land, who gather from around the world to come to the land, yishtuhu, they will drink the wine or the produce, which we said before. Im yishtu b'nei necharti yoshech, the foreigners will stop drinking of the wine, but you will be the ones that drink it b'chatzros kadshi, in my holy place. Isaiah is beseeching the people never ever to give up, to be the guardians, just like he says, I will never be silent, so shall you never be silent. Ivru b'sha'arim, he says. And not just should you pray, like I told you, and not just should you remind God, but you need to do more than that. You should go through the gates, pass through the gates of your cities, travel, go, move, go. Panu derech ha'am, clear a way for the nation to come. Solu hamesila saklu me'evan, remove the stones, remove the obstacles, clear the path, build up the road. In order, harimu nes al ha'amim, raise a sign over all the nations of the world that says, here's the road to Jerusalem. Hinei Adonai hishmiya al katzei haaretz, behold, God has proclaimed to the ends of the earth, to everywhere. And what did he proclaim? Imru levas Tzion, tell the daughter of Zion, the people from Zion, Hinei ish eich ba, behold, your redemption is coming. The one who is coming to deliver you is coming. Hinei sicharo ito ufa'ulaso lefanav. His reward is with him. In other words, he himself is the reward. The Redeemer, the Messiah, the Mashiach, right? He is himself the reward. It's not like he's coming to give you a prize, but he is the prize. Ufa'ulaso lefanav. His job is in front of him. V'karu lahem am hakodesh, and they shall be called the holy nation, Geulei Adonai, those who are redeemed of God. V'lochi karei derusha, and people will to you, to Zion, or to you, the people that return to Zion, you will be called. But actually, here lach is referring to the beginning of the verse. V'karu lahem is am hakodesh, the nation. V'lach, and to you, Zion, is in the singular, ikarei dirusha. People will say that you are the one that people are seeking out. People are looking for you. Irlun ezava, you are a city that has not been forsaken. Thank you so much for listening to chapter 62. Looking forward to studying chapter 63 together.